Has this ever happened to you? The air still warm from his touch, the sheets holding the scent of closeness, yet his presence feels like smoke slipping through your fingers. His body may still lie beside you, but his spirit is already retreating into a fortress you cannot see. In the shadows of his mind, he closes gates, draws bridges, and posts silent guards along the walls. You feel the shift before he even moves. The embrace softens, the voice grows distant, and a curtain drops between you and whatever truth is hiding behind his eyes. Most women mistake this withdrawal as a simple loss of interest, a change of heart, or an unspoken criticism. But those are the surface illusions, the kind Machiavelli warned rulers about, the ones that conceal the deeper currents of power, fear, and self-preservation. A man who pulls away after intimacy is not always running from you. More often, he is running from what intimacy reflects back at him. In the quiet aftermath, when the body has given its secrets and the mind has no more distractions, he faces something far more dangerous than your expectations. He faces his own. For the male ego, intimacy is not just pleasure. It is exposure. In that closeness, his armor thins. The calculated mask he wears for the world, the steady tone, the confident posture, the easy control, begins to crack. A woman's gaze after intimacy is a mirror sharper than steel, cutting past the rehearsed gestures and finding the man beneath the strategy. And Machiavelli knew that exposure, whether on the battlefield or in the bedchamber, is the point where one is most vulnerable to being conquered. This is why, in the moments after giving himself, some men instinctively withdraw, not because they dislike you, but because their mind is racing to rebuild the fortifications. He is replaying his words, assessing his performance, calculating the risk of what you might think, what you might demand, what you might now hold over him in the subtle economy of desire. He may not know it consciously, but his body moves like a ruler protecting his dominion after opening the gates to a stranger. And here is where the power balance shifts. For the woman who understands this, there is no panic in his retreat. She sees it for what it is, a reflex of a man unused to surrender. She does not chase his shadow back into the dark. She lets him go, knowing that the memory of her stillness will haunt him more than any plea could. In Machiavellian terms, she refuses to give him the advantage of seeing her unsettled. She remains the unshaken sovereign of her own realm. Intimacy, in its truest form, is an act of mutual disarmament. But most men have been trained to believe that to be disarmed is to lose control, and to lose control is to invite defeat. The great strategists, in politics, in war, in love, have always known that the moment after victory is the most dangerous, for it is when complacency or fear can undo what was gained. After intimacy, a man may feel both, the satisfaction of connection and the terror of what that connection could cost him. Sometimes his retreat is not about you at all. It is about the battles he fights within. Old wounds, silent insecurities, the unspoken belief that love is a liability. A man who fears betrayal will often withdraw just to prove to himself that he can. He imagines he is keeping the upper hand, preserving his autonomy. But in truth, he is at the mercy of the very fear he seeks to control. And here, you must understand, you cannot cure this fear for him. You can only decide whether to remain in the court of a ruler who governs by suspicion. The Machiavellian woman does not waste her power trying to convince, soothe, or negotiate when a man retreats. She reads his withdrawal as a political act within the private empire of your connection. If she runs after him, she plays into his strategy, confirming that he can retreat without losing her. If she stands her ground, she communicates something more potent, that her presence is a gift, not a guarantee. In those moments when he pulls away, you are being offered a choice disguised as rejection. You can either follow him into the corridors of his uncertainty, or remain in the throne room of your own self-possession. The former will drain you, the latter will define you. A woman's silence in such a moment is not passive. It is the most eloquent declaration of her value. Machiavelli would call it the art of making absence speak louder than words, because what unsettles a man more than anything is not a woman's anger, nor her need, but her calm. When you do not protest his retreat, when you neither accuse nor plead, you force him to confront the reality that your world does not collapse without his constant presence. And that, for many men, is the most intoxicating and most dangerous truth of all. When the first wave of distance settles in, his mind begins its quiet calculations. He is no longer simply the man who shared warmth with you an hour ago. He is the strategist, the ruler surveying his lands after an unexpected visitor has crossed the border. In his world, every act of closeness is a negotiation, every touch an unspoken treaty, and every silence a potential declaration of war. The Machiavellian man understands power not as brute force, but as the delicate control of perception. And so, when he pulls away, he is not merely disappearing. He is watching, measuring, deciding what your reaction will reveal. In those moments, many women rush to fill the void. They reach for him, ask if something is wrong, try to reassure or re-engage. They believe this will bridge the distance, but it often does the opposite. It confirms for him that he can disrupt your stability with minimal effort. In the language of power, it shows that you are governed by his presence rather than your own command. To a man driven by self-protection, this knowledge becomes a weapon, not always used consciously, but always available when he feels the need to reassert control. This is why the woman who holds her composure shifts the entire dynamic. She does not interpret his retreat as an attack or a verdict on her worth. She knows that in the Machiavellian court of intimacy, influence belongs not to the one who reacts first, but to the one who makes the other reveal their hand. Her stillness forces him to confront his own motives without distraction. He cannot hide behind her pursuit, because she does not give chase. And here is the paradox. The more he retreats expecting to dictate the terms, the more unnerving her lack of pursuit becomes. In his mind, her silence begins to breed questions. Has she seen through him? Has she already judged and found him lacking? Or worse, has she already decided she does not need him at all? This uncertainty is more powerful than any confrontation because it lives in the private chambers of his thoughts where no one else can intervene. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. But in the aftermath of intimacy, many men find their thoughts turning against them. Without the distraction of touch, they are left with the raw awareness of how much they revealed, and how easily it could be used against them. In the Machiavellian framework, vulnerability is a currency that must be guarded. A man who has given too much, too soon, will instinctively try to devalue that currency by withdrawing, as if distance can erase what was seen. But it cannot. The truth is that once a woman has glimpsed the man beneath the armor, he is never quite the same in her eyes. And this is where your awareness becomes your advantage. You are not obliged to weaponize what you have seen, but you also do not need to erase it for his comfort. You can hold that knowledge of his fragility, his contradictions, his unspoken fears, without giving up your own ground. Understand this. In the theater of intimacy, there is always a negotiation of sovereignty. If you yield too quickly, you become a subject in his kingdom. If you resist unnecessarily, you become an enemy at his gates. But if you remain unshaken, neither rushing in nor retreating, you establish a third position. The independent power whose alliance is valuable but never desperate. That is the position from which a woman governs herself, and it is the position that unsettles a man who is used to being the primary strategist. The modern mind often forgets that power in relationships is rarely about who speaks loudest or moves fastest. It is about who can endure the silence without breaking. Stoic philosophy teaches that control of one's own emotions is the truest form of strength. Machiavelli would agree, but he would add that in matters of love and politics alike, perception is as critical as reality. A man must believe that you are unmovable for it to influence his behavior. And belief is shaped not by what you declare, but by what you consistently demonstrate. So when he pulls away, do not fill the air with explanations or questions. Let the moment breathe. Let him feel the absence of your pursuit as keenly as he once felt the warmth of your presence. Your restraint will speak the language of power more clearly than any plea could. And in that space, you will see the truth emerge, whether his retreat was a passing strategy or a deeper pattern that no amount of closeness can change. In either case, you remain sovereign. The walls of your own city stand firm, and the man who thought he could vanish without consequence may soon realize that every retreat comes at a cost, especially when the woman he withdraws from knows how to rule herself. There comes a point when his absence is no longer just a tactic, but a confession. Whether he knows it or not, his retreat after intimacy is the unveiling of his private doctrine, that closeness is to be rationed, never given freely, lest it erode the borders of his control. This is not mere coldness. It is an inheritance of the male fear that to be truly seen is to risk subjugation. Machiavelli understood this instinct well. The prince who lets his enemies too far inside his walls will one day wake to find the throne no longer his. For some men, you are not a lover. You are the army camped just beyond the gates. And yet, you are not laying siege. You did not arrive with demands or banners of conquest. You came with an open hand. But in his mind, intimacy itself can be a weapon, because it blurs the boundaries between who commands and who obeys. In the moment before he withdraws, he feels the dangerous pull of wanting more, the lure of surrender, and for a man governed by control, that is the most perilous temptation of all. So he pulls away, telling himself it is for his own protection. He cloaks this in logic. He needs space. He is tired. He is simply not ready. But beneath the surface lies the more primal truth. He fears the shift in power that occurs when a woman becomes the keeper of his unguarded self. If she holds that part of him, then she has influence. If she has influence, then she can wound. Here is where the Machiavellian woman stands apart from the rest. She knows that influence is not seized by force, but offered by the other's choice. She does not rush to reassure him that she will not misuse what she has seen. She does not protest the retreat. She allows it, because allowance itself is a test. Those who withdraw out of habit will reveal themselves quickly when met with no resistance. Those who retreat out of fear may, over time, recognize the difference between a woman who seeks to conquer and a woman who governs herself. And make no mistake, governing yourself is the essence of both power and allure. Men may chase beauty, charm, or novelty, but they stay tethered to the woman who remains whole in her own dominion. Such a woman understands that intimacy does not obligate her to follow a man into his withdrawal any more than it obligates him to remain in her presence. Freedom is mutual, but so are the consequences. Epictetus taught that we cannot control the actions of others, only our response to them. This principle is your shield. When he pulls away, the first impulse may be to demand clarity, to close the gap, to restore the warmth that has just cooled. But the disciplined woman resists this reflex. She knows that to demand is to declare that her peace depends on his nearness, and that is a currency she will not spend. Instead, she moves through her realm, her life, her purpose, her ambitions, as though the retreat has not unseated her. Not with indifference, but with composure, because indifference can be a mask for bitterness, while composure is a crown, and crowns do not tilt to chase the wind. What he may not realize is that his retreat is being measured as much as he measures your response. In the same way a prince gauges the loyalty of his court, you are observing whether his absence is a strategy to maintain balance or a recurring exile that will leave you perpetually outside his walls. The first can be negotiated. The second is a sentence no sovereign woman should accept. And should you decide that his fortress is too tightly sealed, that his withdrawals are not calculated pauses, but unyielding barricades, you can step away without theatrics. That too is a Machiavellian act, the quiet withdrawal that leaves the other party to reckon with the emptiness they themselves created. No speeches, no warnings, just the silent understanding that your allegiance is not bound to a ruler who governs through absence. In this way, you transform what could have been a wound into a judgment. You are not abandoned. You are evaluating. You are not waiting. You are deciding. And the man who once thought he could slip away unseen will find himself confronting the most dangerous reality of all, that in leaving, he may have forfeited something he cannot replace. There is a certain cold precision to the way time works after he has pulled away. At first, he believes the distance gives him leverage, that it places him in the role of the chooser, the one who dictates the rhythm of return. But the longer the silence stretches, the more the balance of power shifts in ways he didn't predict. What Machiavelli warned of in political exile holds just as true in the intimate realm. Absence is a double-edged sword. It can make the heart grow fonder, yes, but it can also teach the heart to live without. If his retreat was meant to keep you in orbit, he assumes you will linger in gravitational pull. Yet the Machiavellian woman understands momentum. She knows that stillness is not the same as waiting, and silence is not the same as longing. She allows the void to exist between you without rushing to fill it. This patience is her weapon, for the man who retreats too often will one day return to find the court empty, the gates closed, and the throne he once occupied dismantled in his absence. It is in this space, the space after intimacy, after retreat, that a deeper truth about desire reveals itself. Men, like rulers, are most unnerved when they cannot read the mind of the one before them. A predictable adversary can be controlled, an unreadable ally must be respected. When you neither accuse nor cling, you step into that rare territory of being beyond easy calculation. He cannot know if your calm is forgiveness, indifference, or the gathering of a storm, and that uncertainty forces him into self-examination in ways direct confrontation never could. Seneca wrote that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. In the realm of intimacy, delay is also the great revealer. By giving no immediate reaction to his withdrawal, you expose its true motive. If it was a temporary defensive reflex, he will test the silence for a while before returning, curious to see if the bridge is still open. If it was a pattern of avoidance, he will stretch the distance until the connection withers. Either way, you have your answer without lowering your crown to extract it. But the Machiavellian mind does not stop at understanding. It acts with intention. You must decide whether this man's governance over his own fears is strong enough to build with, or whether his empire is destined to collapse under the weight of his suspicion. This is not about punishing him for pulling away. It is about recognizing that a man who cannot remain present after being seen will always make you pay for his discomfort, and the price, over time, is your own sovereignty. There is also an unspoken element here that few women dare acknowledge. Sometimes his retreat is not about fear or control, but about the intoxicating high of conquest. For certain men, intimacy is the campaign, and withdrawal is the celebration of victory. Once the fortress is taken, they are already plotting the next battle elsewhere. In the political language of desire, you are not meant to be a queen, only a territory briefly occupied. To recognize this is not cynicism, it is self-preservation. The Machiavellian woman studies patterns, not promises. And should you see this pattern, your course is clear. You do not bargain for permanence with a man who values transience. You do not plead for presence from one who thrives on absence. You simply remove yourself from the game entirely, knowing that the rarest move in both politics and love is not the counterattack, but the silent exit at the height of their confidence. It leaves them rewriting the history of the campaign, wondering how victory could taste so much like loss. In the end, what he is truly hiding when he pulls away is not always a secret about you. It is a truth about himself, that he cannot yet stand unarmored in the light of being known, that his strategy for safety is built not on trust, but on distance. That closeness is something he can enter, but not yet inhabit, and the Machiavellian woman, ever the strategist, knows that such truths cannot be argued away or seduced into disappearance. They must be met with the same clarity and discipline that governs any well-defended realm. So when his absence stretches into days or weeks, you do not ask when he will return. You do not draft letters to remind him of what he is losing. You simply live, visibly, fully, without apology, because nothing unsettles a man who retreats quite like the discovery that life within your walls thrives, with or without his presence. The woman who rules herself does not fear the empty space. She lets it echo until it speaks the truth. And in that truth, she makes her decision. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.